or afternoon, based on wherever you're joining us from. Thank you for the time today, especially given a lot of folks are heads down with COVID-19 initiatives. We also appreciate you and your organizations being on the front lines of fighting this pandemic. Given the times that we're in, we are trying to be as good a partner as possible and deliver very timely information. There's been a lot of conversations recently around Windows Virtual Desktop, how that can be very quickly enabled. So one of the solutions that has come into prominence recently has been around NetApp, and wanted to elaborate a little bit on that partnership today, but also some of the solutions that they can very quickly implement that can help enable a remote workforce. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron and Zach from the NetApp team and let them take it away.
Thanks, Carson, and we appreciate you all joining this morning. We are here to hopefully provide you with some relief to pain that you may be experiencing right now with so many people working remotely, and also just challenges that you may have in your organization that need to be addressed sooner rather than later. NetUp and Microsoft have been working together for over 20 years. And recently, we've released a product called Azure NetApp Files, which is sold by Microsoft and is one that is a game changer for organizations that want to run mission critical workloads in the cloud. So as an example, many of you may have workloads that you are used to running on-prem. These are things that need high performance. These are things that need to be highly available. And these are workloads that, are mission critical to your environment. You also may, be wanting to move to Azure, and to do that, you need to feel comfortable that these file workloads will be handled as well, if not better, in Azure. And so this is where Azure NetApp Files is going to come into play. So Azure NetApp Files is a fully managed Microsoft Azure storage service. It runs on all flash bare metal. And as I said, it's first party, so it is sold to you by Microsoft. It's part of however you buy Microsoft products, this fits into your billing. If you have enterprise agreements with them, and if you have commitments, Azure NetApp Files fits in. And then what it does is it provides scalable, high-performance storage for Linux and SMB workloads, which is something that not all products are able to do. I want to show you where Azure NetApp Files fits in to the Azure portfolio. So many of you may be running other workloads on Azure Disk or Azure Blob, or even Azure Files. But what you'll find is that when you need high-performance workloads, that's where Azure NetApp Files comes into play. This is something that Microsoft recognized, which is why they worked with NetApp to get this product into their portfolio. And this is something that you're going to be able to use for workloads like SAP, for Windows Virtual Desktop, for vendor-neutral archive systems, and other things that you may need to run your healthcare organizations. Also, what we found, especially during this time, is that it's very attractive to buy these things in the cloud, so that you don't have to buy additional hardware for your data center floor. These conditions may be something temporary, or they may be how we all end up working. But with this, you will be able to host televisits. You'll be able to have thousands of workers working remotely and able to access things just like they would on-prem. So again, one of the things that differentiates Azure NetApp Files is the performance. So this slide, and as Carson mentioned, we will follow up with these slides for you. But you'll notice that the performance for Azure NetApp Files is significantly better than Azure Files or even Premium Files. And one thing that's a big differentiator is that it handles both NFS and SMB, and also has lots of features that many NetApp users are familiar with, like snapshots and backup tools. So again, this is going to be a big game changer for you as you're able to run these workloads in Azure. There are 3 levels of service, and we find that customers use all 3 for different things. So we have standard, we have premium, and ultra. So for example, if you're running, say, an SAP workload, that would probably run on ultra. For other things like databases, you may run premium. And then lots of people just choose to do their file storage or their backups using standard. Zach is one of our cloud solution architects. And what we would do with you is work with you to listen to what you're trying to do and help you determine the ideal service level for your project. Again, today we're going to focus a little bit more on the Windows Virtual Desktop workload, but I do want to show you how many different workloads Azure NetApp Files is performing in for lots of organizations like you. So for databases, for web applications, high performance computing, and then I would say, kind of from a value perspective, the solution we have with SAP HANA is one that is endorsed by SAP, Microsoft, and NetApp, and it's something that no other cloud can accommodate. And then today we're going to talk about Windows Virtual Desktop because as so many people are working remotely, organizations are really needing to scale and scale quickly to accommodate these needs. We can honestly tell you that this is something that can be done in days, like, day and a half, 2 days, versus weeks and months for normal practices. And, why ANF for Windows Virtual Desktop? It's a lot of the reasons that I addressed at the beginning of this call. This is something that's fully supported by Microsoft, and you would consume it as part of your Azure agreement. So again, this allows you to make the decision for what you're going to do now. And then, as the advantages are with cloud, this is something you continue with. This is something you can increase or decrease as time goes on. And then, again, you get to the full Azure cloud. So lots of different layers, lots of different features in the cloud when you need it, and you pay for only what you use. So again, in this time of people working remotely, at the time of people needing, the ability to do televisits, to access storage, to access applications and files, especially images, which is very common in healthcare. This is something that will really help you guys. And we're seeing many, many organizations do this, especially during COVID times, but it's very viable, at any time to use ANF for Windows Virtual Desktop. So Microsoft has deemed this one of their promotional offers. Again, I will share these details, but through June 30th, there are some benefits that you can get from Microsoft funding to do this through a partner. And we have customers currently taking advantage of that. So that will give you some help from a third party to help you do this, as well as some funds from Microsoft. So, again, a lot of the incentive that you have is that this is what your employees need right now, but it's always helpful when there's money available to help you do that. So I'm going to let Zach show you the service, but I wanted to give you a call to action because, again, I think this is something that you guys are going to like and something that I think is going to be helpful to you. This is whitelisted, which means that we need your Azure subscription ID so that you can onboard. It takes, probably between 12 and 24 hours to get it whitelisted. And what we'll do is if you email me your Azure subscription ID or IDs, I'll get them whitelisted. I'll let you know and give you directions for how to onboard or set up a call to talk about more about how we can help you in your environment. And then just for fun, and because you listen to this webcast, and we're all kind of looking for some fun coming in the mail these days, after you whitelist and onboard, you will receive a Sugar Wish, which is just something that you get to pick that gets mailed to your house. So our hope is that after you see the service that Zach's going to show you, is that you choose to learn more about it and set up calls with us. And like I said, it's really very easy. It's high performance, and it's something that I think you're going to be pleased to have in your environment. So I'm going to turn this over to Zach so that he can show you the system.
Awesome. Let me take control from you here. All right. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
So, well, really quick, I'd like to start out with just a little bit of a presentation on the performance numbers before we get into a demo. Just because with Azure NetApp Files, it's truly a platform as a service solution. So we take away a lot of your traditional storage management, and we make it, the decision-making process to deploy Azure NetApp Files very simple. Understand the performance characteristics of your workload, and then what protocol do you need support for. So when it comes to performance, like Erin already said, this was the previous slide she showed. We have 3 support performance tiers: standard, premium, and ultra. Each come with SLAs of throughput, so 60 megabytes per second per terabyte, 64 megabytes per second per terabyte, and 128 megabytes per second per terabyte. What's great about the tool is that it can meet the on-demand requirements of your workload's performance as they fluctuate. So you can scale each of these up in those increments of terabytes, and you'll see the performance increase with that on the fly. Now, what does that mean? So performance sizing, it's configurable by 2 factors, right? So I've got premium tier volume here set up. I've got 2 terabytes at the volume quota. What does that mean? That means that 2 terabyte volume is now getting 128 megabytes per second of throughput. So understanding that you can scale that, not just, this isn't a one-time provision. This is, I can create a 2 terabyte volume. If I know, say for a WVD instance, I'm going to have a logon storm, all X amount of my employees are going to access their Windows Virtual Desktop at the same time. Let me go ahead and proactively scale this volume to 20 terabytes to get extra performance during that logon period. 2 hours after, make sure everybody's been logged on, has accessed their virtual environment. There's no stragglers. Well, we can scale that back down to a performance need that makes sense, right? So it gives you the ability to scale performance on demand with your environment, and specifically, with the access that your users need to Windows Virtual Desktop environment. Now we're talking about performance, but I wanted to show this slide too, as it's a great tool to point out, hey, Windows Virtual Desktop, this is really a tool built to use Azure NetApp Files. There's, depending on how you guys deploy it, whether using a multi-session deployment or single host, and how many users you guys have as well. If you're looking just to do FSLogix profile containers on an SMB share, or if you're looking to remount the Windows file shares as well, home directories to Azure NetApp Files, right? Performance is going to be key, whether it's, if you have users who need high performance based off of the applications they have access to, or if it's like I was saying, you have issues with logon storms, boot storms, anything like that, Azure NetApp Files will give you the performance numbers needed to mitigate that risk, that, the latency that comes with accessing, that many environments off of single VMs or multi-session VMs during an initial logon. With Azure NetApp Files, you're getting sub-millisecond latency and high IOPS to match the demand that comes with provisioning a brand new VDI environment like this. So let's go over to a demo now to show you really what it looks like from start to finish, how to set up a volume, and then what it looks like to go into production. So once I'm in my Azure console here, the first thing I like to do is really just search Azure NetApp Files. Just to show, on the left-hand side, this is truly a first-party service. You see Azure NetApp Files here under the services column. So if I click on that, it takes me into my NetApp account level. Now, what the NetApp account means is really just a kind of administrative construct. You'll attach this application, this service, directly to a resource group, so you can control who's deploying the resource, who has access to deploy. On the same accord, this is also where you'll dictate which regions you want to deploy Azure NetApp Files in here as well. This is our demo account, so we have some in West US 2, South Central. We have an international footprint, so depending on which data centers you guys need access to, which regions, just let us know. We can let you know if we're live there or not. So once I click into the storage account I want to deploy a volume in, the next tier I get is the capacity pool. Now, the capacity pool really is, it's a billing construct created. It's a non-addressable resource. The goal here is just to figure out, hey, what do I need my performance number at? What's the performance tier I need to select? So, we have a standard pool, but you can come in and create a standard, premium, and ultra. Doesn't matter. Provide the capacity pool name, and then you're live. If any point in time, let's say I'm at 4 terabytes, I know I need more performance coming from this pool. Come back to the capacity pool level. Go to the volumes here. Sorry, guys. There we go. We can resize on the fly. I've got 6 terabytes now, but I can change it to 8. You can see. All right, so now I've updated. I've got more performance capacity that I can scale my volumes to. So once you have a capacity pool specifically for setting up with Windows Virtual Desktop, you'll need to connect it to an Active Directory domain controller. So now what's great about Azure NetApp Files is we have a bring your own AD capability, so we can leverage your on-prem AD and all your pre-existing NTFS ACILs that you guys have today. If you're using Azure Active Directory domain services, also supported with this tool. Really what we need from a on-prem AD, a traditional AD perspective, is the ability to communicate with that directory. So having a site-to-site VPN set up with your on-premises or an express route is the way to do that. So once we have it joined to the domain, now we can start provisioning volumes. So you can see I have a full list of different volumes here, all across different protocol support, whether it's NFS v3, v4.1, or today's purpose SMB. So what that looks like is I'm going to do exact WVD. Let's say we do 48, 2 terabyte. Next, we select protocol. Again, different protocol support. We'll use SMB. Just know for, say, NFS purposes too, we have security in place for around the export policy, so you can control the client level access and what they can do to the volume. And then again, from the SMB, we'll look at the Active Directory domain. We'll honor any pre-existing NTFS ACILs that you guys may have. Next, if you guys need to add tags to the volume, you can. And the last is a final validation, safe to say, hey, let's make sure you didn't mess up anything, you didn't fat finger anything while typing it in, the networking is all good. Looks like we got a validation passed. One thing to note, with Azure NetApp Files, it's inherently, more secure storage option. It's only a private IP solution, so you will provision a dedicated, delegated subnet for this application. So no other native Azure services can overlap the Azure NetApp Files delegated subnet. Now we've got a green check, validation passed. We can go ahead and hit create. So creation takes about 30 seconds or so. It's a pretty quick process. While we wait, I'll go back to our volume level here. So again, we have a bunch of different volumes. You can see still provisioning here. If I go and look at one of our other SMB volumes that we have, once that volume goes live, you'll see a couple different options under the volume menu. You can see we integrate from a reporting standpoint directly into Azure Monitoring and the metrics. So you can see, well, looks like our volume just created. Let's go to that one actually. So you can see, hey, that one had 44% consumed. This one has nothing. If I go deeper into the metrics world, I can even run reports on, what type of latency I'm getting, average read, average write, what type of IOPS, the performance that I'm getting it, and how much is consumed by, capacity or specifically the snapshots as well. From a redundancy perspective, you can take on-demand high performance snapshots that are incremental in the sense that they will only take the deltas of the changes of the data as they get taken. And then lastly, and this is really kind of key, is that the ease of use with Azure NetApp Files. Now we just provision a volume in 2 minutes to 30 seconds to run on the back end, and now we've got all of our mount instructions to be able to go map this drive to a Windows VM. From a Windows Virtual Desktop perspective, I would just install the FSLogix profile container directly onto this SMB share, and you could be used as shared storage. Again, the key thing with Azure NetApp Files is that I've got a 2 terabyte volume here. I'm getting 32 megabytes per second per terabyte at the standard tier, but I can go in and scale that volume up and down as needed. So from a shared storage perspective, are you putting just the FSLogix profile containers on this drive? Are we looking to put the home directories there as well, right? How diverse do you want to add? How much data do you want to do it? This tool will scale with you. Performance will scale as well. So I can copy my mount instructions to a clipboard, go into a Windows VM, and go ahead and map this drive and start consuming performance on the fly. And really, it's just that simple. So that was start to finish provisioning a 2 terabyte volume. Again, part of the elasticity, I can come in here, resize this as needed. For anyone who wants to automate this whole process, we are integrated fully into the ARM template within Azure as well. So this can be completely scripted and automated as needed. But yeah, that's it. That's all it takes to get it up and running with a SMB volume with Windows to start setting up your Windows Virtual Desktop environment using Azure NetApp Files off the back end. It's just that simple.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah.
Again, I know we're kind of on a large format call, but does anyone have questions about what Zach just showed you? Are there additional things that you would like to look at? Okay, that's great. I'm going to put in the chat, I'm going to remind you of my information. so that you guys can send me your Azure subscription IDs and we can set up follow-up calls with you to talk more about your environment. Another place to go is cloud.netapp.com, which is where you can click on Azure NetApp Files and see a lot of the stories about some organizations that have used Azure NetApp Files for their mission critical applications, as well as case studies. And, from our perspective, we welcome the opportunity to talk to you about the situation you're facing right now and how we can be helpful. Azure NetApp Files has a lot of different use cases. Windows Virtual Desktop is just one of them, but we think that it's something that is going to be highly effective during these times. Everything can be done remotely, and your organization can really meet the needs today, next month, and next year, based on what you're facing. So. Yeah. Again, we appreciate the time that you've spent with us today, and we look forward to learning more about your situations and how we can help.
Yeah, absolutely. And the purpose of my demo here too is just to show you that getting into this Windows Virtual Desktop environment, spinning it up shouldn't be a daunting task, right? As easy as the Azure NetApp Files deployment is there, we can get you into a full VDI deployment as needed, fast and easy.
So again, thank you, Carson, for arranging this. Again, this product is sold by Microsoft, so Carson and his team, are also actively involved. So you can contact him as well. And again, from our perspective, we can have you up and running this afternoon. So it really is that easy.
Yep. Thank you so much, Aaron and Zach, and certainly everyone for attending today. As we mentioned at the onset, this was recorded, so if you or your team would like to get a copy of this recording, I'll not only put it in the chat after I have the link, but also we'll be happy to provide that via email. If there's any of these introductions, I know, Aaron, you indicated you were going to put your information in the chat as well. If there's any introductions that you'd like to have with the NetApp folks, feel free to reach out to me directly as well, or engage your account team if I'm not your representation. And then lastly, due to this, the times that we're in, there are a lot of additional Microsoft resources that are available, technical architects that can be part of virtual discussions. Glad to also be part of discussions with NetApp and the other partners as well. So definitely feel free to engage if there's any additional ways Microsoft can be a good partner for you and your organizations as you fight this crisis. With that, I'll make one last call for any questions, and then we can sign off. Anyone else? Questions, comments on today's material? All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Aaron and Zach. And
thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Look forward to continuing the dialogue one-to-one. Thank you.